one of my favourite videos to make every year, and I say every year, I've only been on YouTube for a year, but you know what I mean. I did this last season for Formula 1. I did my reaction at the end of the season, but of course I am talking about my predictions for the Formula E Season 5. This is a lot of fun. And of course, I encourage you guys to put your predictions in the comments below. But today, it's pretty obvious what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be going through my 11th place to first place in the Teams Championship. And then I'm going to be going from 22nd all the way through to my Drivers' Champion for Formula E Season 5. Formula E this year, you know the drill. We got brand new drivers, brand new teams. And of course, it's going to be one of the closest years and most dramatic years in Formula E history. I've been helping to build the hype yesterday. We got the F1 word. Yes, we got Sean to do a stream on Formula E, and he's now getting into it. So the hype around Formula E this year is really building, and I'm hoping that we can nail on some predictions. Also, I think the Regen Racing boys, they have done their predictions. So it's time for me, with only 2 days to go now. Blimey, that's insane. 2 days to go. Tomorrow we will see the cars on circuit for the first time with the shakedown. But it's time to do my Teams Championship predictions for Season 5. Starting off then with the 11th place team. And I've gone for Geox Dragon. Now, it's really difficult this year with Formula E because the teams seem so close together. It almost seems a little bit of a shame to put a team dead last. But I've gone with Dragon. Now, I don't think they've got the best lineup in terms of drivers on the grid, but the reason I've put them last is generally because of the form the team had last season. Weren't ever really fighting up for the podiums like they have once been in the sport. D'Ambrosio had a couple of, I suppose you could say, fluke results in qualifying that really elevated him up the grid, but they really struggled as a unit last season. They bought in Jose Maria Lopez a couple of races into the season, and he, I suppose, was a plaster on some of the wounds that the team had from previous years, but I don't think it's going to be enough. And I think Dragon, even though they've bought in Maximilian Gunther, the rookie from Formula 2, I don't think it's going to be enough, and I've put them bottom of the pile. Now, 10th, I imagine this one will surprise quite a few people. I've gone with Venturi, a team that last season, once again, weren't high flyers. Got that one podium, courtesy of Eduardo Mortara, who's staying with the team this year. And of course, they've got Felipe Massa. I mean, I'm 99% sure all of you know 11-time Ferrari Grand Prix winner Felipe Massa. He's heading over to Formula E this year and will be joining Venturi and Susie Wolff. So she is the wife of Toto Wolff, team boss of Mercedes. She's going to be the team boss of Venturi. So it all looks really rosy this year. But I think Venturi, first of all, you've got to give them a year. I think that with a lot of things in Formula E, give people time just to embed themselves in the sport, get used to how things work, because it is a different environment. But also I look at teams like, I suppose, NIO, Nissan, HWA, Virgin, Jaguar. I just see them outpacing Venturi, especially early doors, but I think there's definitely room to grow for Venturi. 9th, I've gone with NIO. Now, first time I did my draft and my predictions, I didn't put NIO in 9th. I actually put them in 10th. But when I thought about it, I actually really like their driver lineup. I love their livery. I think you all know how much I love that beautiful white into the sort of neon aqua sort of turquoise. I think it's beautiful. I think it's a real beautiful bit of kit. But I think Tom Dillmann and Oliver Turvey are probably arguably two of the most underrated drivers in Formula E. And this is something someone brought up yesterday in the stream, was that Oliver Turvey last year was pulling some incredible results out of that car. A car that really shouldn't have been anywhere near the podium, and yet he managed to pick up a P2, which could have easily been the win in Mexico. So I'm not going to count out NIO, and with the strong lineup of Dillmann and Turvey, yeah, let's chuck them in 9th. Now, 8th, I've gone with HWA Racelab, a brand new team to Formula E this year, arguably, and it's not even arguably, they are pretty much Mercedes Formula E team, and next year there's big talks that they will officially be called Mercedes Formula E team. Now, the reason they're called HWA is generally just, like I said earlier, to give them this year to embed themselves in the sport, to then next year Mercedes really put on a fight for the title. But I've put them 8th. I don't want to go too crazy because they are new to Formula E, and I think there will be that embedding period. a brilliant driver lineup of Gary Paffett, this year's DTM champion, and Stoffel Vandoorne, the highly rated Belgium, who struggled in Formula 1 the last couple of years with McLaren. But I think the reason I put them in front of Dragon, Venturi and NIO is that driver lineup. I think that's going to be a really strong one, and especially Vandoorne, I think it's going to elevate them a fair bit in the standings. But between all those four teams, I think it's going to be really close at the bottom of the championship. 7th, I've gone with Nissan. Another, in brackets, new team to the sport for Season 5. Were Renault Edams and now Nissan Edams. There's been a little bit of a shuffle around there, a rebranding, but the bare bones of it, the basics, it's all the same team, really. So all they've done, really, is change their drivers. Now, they've kept Sebastian Buemi in the team. They've brought in Ollie Rowland. Nico Prost is out the door, which, if you follow Formula E for the last couple of years, you can see why. But I've put them down in 7th. I think, if I'm being honest, Nissan were the hardest team to really choose, because last year, they did struggle. They did struggle, Nissan, and, well, Renault it was last year. And the Season 2 World Championship, Buemi, really struggled. And I think they could struggle again. And again, they've got a good lineup. They do have a strong lineup there, but I think going off of last year's pace, they need at least a couple of seasons to get back on track. 6th place, I've gone with Virgin. Now, this is a little bit of a dig about to show up right now, but Virgin really have always been a bit of a one-man team, even when their driver lineup was Sam Bird and John Verne. What a brilliant lineup that was. But in those days, Verne was really struggling in Formula E, and he's definitely been very public about that he couldn't quite manage to get the battery-saving sort of skills you need for Formula E down to a T, and he seems to have got that worked out now, hasn't he, considering he was world champion last year. But they've kept Sam Bird. Sam Bird can always do a job, and I think it's that Sam Bird element that I think's just elevated them above Nissan for me. The real sort of question mark is Robin Frins. He's going to be a really strange one. Raced in Formula E before, had last year out, but he's back this year. I'm not his biggest fan, but I know a lot of Dutch supporters are really looking forward to seeing him back. So let's see. I've put them in 6th. And in 5th, I've gone with Mahindra. Now, Mahindra always seem to be forgotten about in Formula E. Have had 3 wins in their history. Last year could have had more than 3 wins. Felix Rosenqvist really in the early stages was looking like he was going to be in a real championship fight. And I actually predicted him to be champion last year. But he's gone, he's left. He'll be doing the first race of the season in Saudi Arabia, but then Pascal Wehrlein will be coming in, and the man you can see on screen there with his black helmet number 64, Jerome D'Ambrosio, will be joining the team. He's a multiple Formula E winner, and I think that's a really strong lineup. The car always works well at Mahindra. Last year they did have some reliability issues, which isn't really seen too often in Formula E, so I think they'll be able to control those this year with the Gen 2 car. They started production early on the car, and I think it's a strong lineup, especially Wehrlein. So watch out for Mahindra. I've put them in 5th, and they could definitely go higher. 4th, I've gone with Jaguar, a team that, I'm not going to lie, boys and girls, I do have a little soft spot for. I definitely have a little soft spot for Jaguar, and I imagine, as I do at the moment with all of my Formula E content, a lot of you guys wouldn't have seen my stuff from last season because I was a lot smaller, Formula E was a lot smaller, but Jaguar have always had a special place in my heart in Formula E, joining the sport in Season 3, when I really started to watch Formula E and properly love it. They were a team that really, we sort of learnt the sport together. Mitch Evans I've always followed as well, really loved him. He's always been at Jaguar. And I think with Piquet Jr. and Evans, and now in their 3rd full season of Formula E, they're going to elevate it even more. And they've got that pole position last year. They got that podium, the first of each of those. But I think this season we're going to see their first win. I'm sure of that. We're going to see Piquet Jr. back on that podium. I think it's going to be a real special year for Jaguar. And I think they're going to be in the fight for the championship. I really do. But it's going to be top. And it's going to be, well, top-notch. And it's going to be really close between these top boys. Because in 3rd, I've put Techeetah, the team that lost out on the team's championship last year in the last race of the season. But I've put them in 3rd. And that's definitely not a dig. They've got the Citroen power. They're now a Citroen sort of works team this year, or DS, whatever you want to call it. You know, Citroen DS, same thing, but it's officially DS Techeetah. Now, I think that's going to help them a lot. You can see the DS logo on the side of the Techeetah there. I think that's going to help a lot. But I also think Jonathan Vergne will continue to keep pushing the boundaries. And Andre Lotterer, who was in his first year last year, started off, I suppose, with a bit of a sticky patch. Andre Lotterer, but really at the end of the season, really started to push home some big results. They managed to get the first ever Formula E 1-2 last season, something Audi was able to do a little bit later on in Berlin last year. But Techeetah are going to be up there, going to be fighting for wins. That lineup is naughty. Now, Audi, I've put in second, the team that won it last year. And I think it's so close to call between these top 4 teams. Jaguar, Techeetah, Audi, and I'm sure you can guess who I've put in first. But it's so hard to pick. It really is that hard to pick. Lucas di Grassi, I think you all know how highly I rate that man. Last year, I think he was my driver of the season. Even though he got second, the fact that he didn't pick up any points in the first 5 races because of reliability issues, and then every race, well, then the next race was Mexico, picked up that first point of the season. He still had issues in that race, but then every race after that being on the podium, that was incredible. It really was. So I expect this man to be flying once again. Dan Abt last year looked in his best form of his career. So Audi, they're going to have a brilliant car. It looks beautiful as always with that white, green and red livery. So these guys are going to be fighting for wins for sure. But my team's champions, I'm following the trend. Unfortunately, I'm not being original, I'm not being spicy, but I've gone with BMW Andretti. And I suppose if you've never seen Formula E before, you'd probably expect BMW, being a big manufacturer, especially in the world of electric automobiles, you'd expect them to be up there. But Andretti, the, I suppose, official team that they are, really struggled last year. They were the worst team on the grid last year. So what a turnaround it's already looking like. For starters, the livery is a million times better than they've ever had. So that's tick boxes absolutely everywhere. BMW have come on as an official partner now, creating the powertrains, creating the gearboxes, helping with the suspension design. All of that is pretty much BMW now. So they are finally a works team. It's really looking like a spicy package. They've got Felix da Costa, a race winner, rookie Alexander Sims, who's got a bit of potential. So yeah, BMW are my team's champions for Season 5. But now let's move on then to the bit that you will want to see. The spicy bit, the interesting bit where I throw a bit of shade at some drivers and I really hype some drivers up that shouldn't be hyped. The Drivers' Championship. Now obviously a lot of this will be based generally around the team's championship. So obviously I've put BMW near the top, Dragon at the bottom. So obviously I'm not going to put both Dragon drivers at the top and both the BMW drivers at the bottom. But there you go. In 22nd place, I've put Max Gunther of Dragon. He's the first rookie on our list, and he definitely won't be at the bottom of the standings. I'm 100% sure of that, because I'm 100% sure we will have multiple different drivers that currently aren't on the grid joining us later on in the season. So that's a factor that we can't really put in too much at this moment in time, but I have put in Pascal Wehrlein in this list and not Felix Rosenqvist, just to let you know. But Gunther then, I've put him at the bottom. It was really difficult to put someone at the bottom, I can't lie, because you look at the list of talent in Formula E this year, it is the highest it's ever been. I'm 100% sure of that by a country mile as well. I'm absolutely loving it. But Gunther, a difficult year in Formula 2. It was rookie year in Formula 2 for him. It's his rookie year in Formula E. So I'm not expecting too much from Max Gunther. I'm not the biggest fan of Jose Maria Lopez, but I recognise his talent for sure. And I think, like I say, I've put Dragon at the bottom of the list. Gunther I don't rate as high as Lopez, but I've put Lopez in 21st. So that sort of shows you how I'm feeling about this team this year. Really, I don't have a great feeling about them. Haven't announced their livery yet, so sod's law is that they'll do it while I'm recording this. But look, it's going to be a difficult year for them. I'm 100% sure of that. And if it's not, for sure that's going to be the surprise of the season by a country mile, because let's be honest, they've had a difficult couple of years. They haven't brought in all this, I suppose, publicity into the team like the likes of Venturi have done. But Jose Maria Lopez, I definitely expect to get points here, there and everywhere, because this guy, I think you could argue, is Mr. Consistent. Last year in a dodgy car, he wasn't picking up points all the time, but he's always at that lower end, just outside the points. So let's give it a go. let's give it a try, but I'm not really feeling anything special coming out of Dragon this year. So sorry, boys. I put Gunther 22nd, Jose Maria Lopez 21st. So sorry, lads. I do apologise if you're watching, but we're going to move on then. So that's already the Dragon boys out the way. And 20th, this I imagine is a bit of a shock to some people. I've put Edoardo Mortara. Now, this one, I've put a bit of thought into. Okay, I've put a bit of thought into. So, last season then, cast your minds back to the opening weekend. Had a really strong start, did Edoardo Mortara. Could have won that second race. He really could have. Could have picked up Venturi's first ever win. But then he threw it all away. He did a little spin, couple of laps to go, and he gave the win to Dan Abt, who then was disqualified. But then Felix Rosenqvist, he also let through. And so Felix Rosenqvist got the win. So that was a bit of a screw up there from Edoardo Mortara. But after that, he seemed to completely lose all of his speed for the rest of the year. And consequently, was in and out at the end of the year. Tom Dillmann came in for Venturi a couple of times. And he was doing races here, there and everywhere. So I can see a similar sort of thing happening this year. Because it doesn't look like Edoardo Mortara really wants to put all his eggs into the Formula E basket. And I think if it's a similar sort of year this year, come the end of the season, I can imagine him going elsewhere. But the guy I've put in front of him in 19th is Gary Paffett. Now, I spoke about this in the Constructors' Championship a little bit earlier, or the Teams' Championship. Sorry about that, everyone. The Teams' Championship. HWA, I don't expect anything major from them. It's their first year, so anything really that isn't last place should be seen as a benefit. However, they are a Mercedes sort of constructor, so they've got to be doing something to be able to, for the following season, bring Mercedes in with some knowledge and some strength. So Gary Paffett, DTM World Champion, hasn't driven in a single-seater for a hell of a long time. So that's a big factor I'm putting into this. And to be honest, like I said earlier, I put HWA in 8th in the Constructors, but I don't think that car is the 8th quickest car. But it's the skills and talents of Stoffel Vandoorne, I think, is going to push them up the Constructors. And so Paffett, I think really, it's just in a sort of, he's picking up points occasionally. The car isn't really a car that should be picking up points that often. So it makes sense to be put him in 19th. Now, I just had a little stutter there because I realised how many people I'm going to annoy by putting Robin Frins in 18th place. Now, that is an I and then a J on screen. It doesn't look like it, but that's just the font for you. But I don't rate this guy. I don't, and I know, I said a minute ago, I knew I was going to wind some people up with that, but I really hope this guy proves me wrong. I really do, because many times before, we all do it, and it's always hard doing predictions, but you make a claim that, oh, this guy, no, he's a waste of time, and then he just completely just blows you away, and you're like, oh, fair enough. I mean, look at my Kevin Magnussen prediction in Formula 1, so that sort of is a perfect example. You know, I said Magnussen would be nowhere, and yet he was in the fight for best of the rest, and I think Robin Frins is that almost Magnussen for me. I don't really know too much about him, if I'm being 100% honest, but when he was in Formula E, wasn't really a driver that set the world on fire, and when he left, it wasn't a driver I thought, oh, he's gone, what a shame. So that's where I'm coming from, really. But I've put him down in 18th, which you could argue is a little bit harsh, but again, I don't think that Virgin car itself is going to be firing on all cylinders this year, so I've put him down there. And Mahindra, Jerome D'Ambrosio, another one, a little bit like Robin Frins, where do I think the car's going to be great? Not really. And I think with the pack being so close, you're going to see these top drivers really emerge this year because the cars are going to be so close together. So D'Ambrosio, he's fine in Formula E, he's fine. And don't forget, this guy's driven for Lotus F1, so I think a lot of you know how much I really love that team, so I've got a little bit of bias there towards Jerome. But Formula E, again, never really set the world on fire. Last year drove for Dragon, had a couple of fluke sort of qualifying results, but even then in the race, just went backwards. He's picked up wins, this guy, in Formula E, countless podiums it seems like, but never really put on that major title fight, never really looked like someone who was really going to challenge at the front. And unfortunately, I really don't see him being up there in the championship this season. But I hope he proves me wrong, because he's such a nice guy, and I think part of me thinks he does deserve a break. But in 16th, I've put Thomas Dillmann. Now, Dillmann, like I said last year, didn't really get a major go at Formula E because he was just chucked in at the end of the year to fill a seat that Mortara was absent from. But this guy was brilliant, really was. Last race of the season, got fourth. Got fourth, and Venturi all year, the best result they had was that third place for or that ended up being a second place for Mortara. But apart from that, even Maro Engel that they had in the team, nowhere. And this guy just shows up, whacks it in a fourth place. He was brilliant at the end of last year, and I'm so pleased that he's got a seat. And for a team like NIO, which definitely could be seen as an underdog, there's another beautiful shot of that car. The white, oh, love it. Off topic again, but no, honestly, I think this guy is much more special than people give him credit for. I definitely think, as you can see now, I think Turvey has the edge on him a little bit, but I think it's going to be close. And this is why I put NIO in 9th in the championship, because I think there is something special there with these two drivers. Again, like I said earlier with Vandoorne, I think we'll be able to elevate that team, even if the car isn't the best. Now, 15th, this is going to be a shocker for people. Felipe Massa. Now, I can see the dislikes already. So thanks for that, whoever's just done that. But let me explain. So, Venturi, I don't expect them to be major this year. Massa's first year in Formula E. It's not Venturi's first year in Formula E, but it is Susie Wolff's first year in Formula E. So there's a lot of new things going on within that team. Massa's been out of racing for a year, so I think that's going to be a factor. But part of me thinks I'm not being nice enough to Felipe Massa. But also, when you see all the guys in front of Felipe Massa, I think then you really start to realise how good this grid is. And you really do. Because the next couple of drivers, okay, maybe I could have put Massa in 13th, 12th, say. You know, there is obviously a little bit of leeway with all these sort of things. And at the end of the year, if my predictions are a couple of sort of positions off, brilliant. But Massa, I don't expect anything major in his first year. I do see a podium coming from somewhere, but nothing crazy. 14th, we've gone with Oliver Turvey, which, again, I feel really bad putting Turvey and Massa in 14th and 13th. But the cars are the big factor in this one. They really are, because these two guys, again, you look at, I suppose, I don't want to spoil anything, but the likes of Ollie Rowland, I've put in front of him. Alexander Sims, are they really better drivers than Oliver Turvey and Felipe Massa? Well, that's definitely a question that you could ask. But I don't think Venturi and NIO are going to be on the levels of, well, maybe Nissan. Maybe Nissan, they could be there. But I don't think they're going to be on the level of BMW. And I think it's going to be a difficult year for NIO and Venturi. So that's why I've put these guys there. But Turvey, I have put him in front of Massa. I have put him in front of Dillmann. This guy is arguably the embodiment. I've said it loads of times today, but he's the embodiment of underdog in Formula E. No one ever really gives him a chance, and yet he always manages to pull it out of the bag. Arguably, in Formula E terms, was best of the rest last year because he didn't have a great car, but he was still picking up results. I've spoke about that second place in Mexico many times. 13th, I've put Ollie Rowland. So here you go. This is what I mean about the Massa sort of situation where you can push him up a couple of slots. You could probably push him back a couple of slots. It just depends how he jumps into it. So that's why I've put Massa in 15th. But Rowland, I've put 13th. Again, I think this Nissan car isn't going to be terrible. I don't. And you look at the performance of Buemi last year in Renault. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst. And it was that solid almost constantly in the midfield. You know, you saw teams like Virgin that some weekend were by far the best. It's a bit of extreme, but one of the best cars on the grid. And other weekends they'd be right at the back. So Formula E is quite like that. And I think that's something that if you're new to Formula E and you were a Formula 1 fan and you're just coming over, you're probably not used to, where a team can be at the front and then next week they're absolutely nowhere. So I think Nissan could be that team that's always sort of on the edge of points, maybe at the lower end of the points. And again, Ollie Rowland, he did some, I suppose, I want to say fantastic things in Formula 2 and GP2, but never got a chance at Formula 1, which I think was almost fair. I definitely think he was as good as the likes of Sergei Sorokin. So this guy's definitely not talentless whatsoever. He's been the Williams' third driver. So I've put him in 13th, but 12th, Stoff Vandoorne. Now, you probably, again, are a little bit shocked by this, considering I've been hyping him up. But I think this now puts into perspective, Again, where I put Felipe Massa, I feel I've really got to defend myself for some reason on that one. But Vandoorne, I've gone 12th, again because of the team. I think that is going to be a factor. I expect Vandoorne to be on the podium. I do see that happening at some point. But just for the first year, give him chance. This guy is going to get fan boost every race. So, of course, that's going to be a factor. And 12th, I don't think it's awful. I really don't think it's awful. And when you see in a second who I've put 11th, you'll think, yeah, that's fair enough. But I really, I put HWA in 8th in the constructors that have 11 teams. So I don't want to go crazy with Stoffel Vandoorne. I really don't. But this guy is special. He will do great things. And I'm confident he'll be a Formula E World Champion a couple of years down the line. You heard this here first. But 11th then, we have gone with a World Champion, Sebastian Buemi. Now, I think some of you know, I'm not the biggest fan of Sebastian Buemi. Some of his outbursts he's had are, a little bit, well, let's just not talk about them, that sort of things. But, look, Nissan, they're not going to be on top form. They're definitely not going to be on top form. You look in the constructors, I put them in 7th. So it's, I don't expect this team to be fighting at the front. And probably if they could pick up a win, that would be mega. But Buemi wasn't able to do it last year with Renault. I don't expect it this year with Nissan. I really don't. Despite, he looks so chipper, to be fair to him. And he's so ready for the new season, which is great to see. And last year, I really started to, I suppose, like Buemi a whole lot more, because he wasn't out there winning, being cocky, having this arrogant demeanour about him. It was really nice to see, and I hope this year he can put that positive effect on me once again, because last year, he was aware that he wasn't in the best car for the first time in Formula E, and I think he's going to be aware of that again this year. So, not expecting major things from Sebastian Buemi. Now, this might surprise a few people. Another rookie. It's the 4th rookie we've spoke about. So we spoke about Gunther, Gary Paffett. We spoke about Rowland and Vandoorne. So actually, Pascal Wehrlein is my 2nd rookie in terms of, I've got 1 in first place for rookie, and then Pascal Wehrlein's the 2nd highest rookie I've got in the list. Now, he's not taking place in the first race, but again, I think the reason I put him in front of Vandoorne is because of the car. It's because of the car, because I think Pascal Wehrlein is one of the better drivers in Formula E. I think that's 100% fair to say. Even if you're not a big fan of Pascal Wehrlein, he's got speed. And I know a lot of people don't like to, well, I suppose, probably a bit unfair to say admit it, but this guy wasn't awful in Formula 1. Picked up points in a Manor and a Sauber. Did outrace Esteban Ocon, more than not. I know they only had half a year and Ocon jumped in and all that, but he did, if you really want to look at the bare bones of it, outraced Marcus Ericsson, but I think he was out-qualified by Marcus Ericsson. But this guy still had talent, and bit annoyed he's not going to be in Formula 1, but I think he's going to do good things in Formula E. Now, in 9th place, we've gone with our Season 1 champion, Nelson Piquet Jr. Now, Jaguar, I put 4th in the constructors, so in theory, you'd probably expect them to be 7th and 8th. So, 9th, you can't really complain too much, to be totally honest with you. Again, not the biggest fan of Piquet Jr., if I'm being totally honest, but there's not really a lot to say. I think the car is definitely going to help him out a lot. He does have a tendency, Piquet Jr., to get in some, I suppose, some smashes that shouldn't really be smashes. I'm thinking Monaco, where he rammed Jean-Eric Vergne into the wall. That's a topic for another time, but he had a strong year last year, Piquet Jr. I know he finished behind Evans in the standings, but a lot of those issues were reliability issues. But I do see Evans pushing up that bar once again, was really on a big hit of form at the end of the year. But I still expect to see Piquet Jr. back on the podium. I do see that happening at some point. And I think 9th is a fair place to put Piquet Jr. Now, this 8th place, Andre Lotterer. How many people expected that one? Probably not a lot of you. Obviously, Jean-Eric Vergne's teammate, the second half of Jean-Eric Vergne and Andre Lotterer. Look, difficult year again last year in Formula E. I know it was his first year, his rookie year. He was up for Rookie of the Year, to be fair, at the Autosport Awards, so you can't have done that bad. But there were a few silly mistakes from Andre Lotterer. Raced very hard, arguably a little too hard. So it's a really difficult one with Andre Lotterer, because this guy does have speed, but I can see there being incidents this year. I really can, and I think he'll be better than last year. I think that's 100% fair to say. I think he'll be better than last year, but I look at the guys I've put in front of him, and I see a little bit more consistency from those guys, a little bit more finesse, but don't let that take away that Andre Lotterer, I can see getting his first win in Formula E. I can see that happening at some point this year, because I think Techeetah will be up there fighting, but I just don't think he quite has some of the talents that his teammate, John Verne, has. Now, 7th. Wow, this was a guy that I found hard to place in my predictions. I really did. Sam Bird, the guy who's won in every single year of Formula E. So let's throw out a crazy prediction and say that's going to happen again. He's always been fighting for the title as well. So 7th would actually be his worst season ever in Formula E. And again, I'm putting that down to the car. Even though they've got an Audi powertrain this year, Virgin, they've ditched or almost were sort of rejected by DS, and now they've had to go with Audi. They've got partners Envision with them, but Sam Bird almost has that little bit extra, that little sparkle, and somehow this guy he always manages. Every year I managed to underestimate him, and I thought, even though my draft predictions, he was nowhere. And I thought, I can't do that. I can't underestimate this guy once again. So he's in 7th. I don't expect him to be fighting for the title, but this guy, like I say, always finds a way. And even though Virgin, I think, will struggle, I still have hope that Sam Bird will do pretty good things. 6th place, Daniel Abt. Now, is this a fair statement to say he's going to be in 6th when I've put Audi in 2nd? Well, once again, it's a difficult one. It is a difficult one to call. Abt, does he quite have the same finesse as Lucas di Grassi? I don't think so. He is one of the nicest guys on the grid, Daniel Abt, one of the funniest guys in Formula E, but does that really translate over to speed? Well, last year it did. Picked up his first ever win in Formula E. Did it, well, I suppose 3 wins he eventually got, although one was stripped away. Got the first ever 1-2 for Audi, which was in Audi's home country of Germany, his home country for Germany. But again, I still see him as that number 2 in Audi. I do see that. And we did see last year as well, once Lucas di Grassi really got on the pace, there wasn't really that many times where Daniel Abt really was able to get the best from the car. Obviously, there was a couple of occasions, but that Audi car last year was, I suppose it's 100% fair to say, the best car on the grid. They won the Teams Championship, and both cars didn't even finish after the race pretty much. So I've put him in 6th, but I've put Alexander Sims in 5th, someone who I've been critical of. I said that I don't think he'll have the most stellar year of Formula E, but I think it was hard to choose between him and Abt for 5th place. And I think now as well you're seeing why I've put Vandoorne and Massa so far down, because I think you look at the talent at the top, it is so close, but I think Sims is going to have that consistency. And with a car that is going to be near the front, I'm pretty confident of most races, I think having that consistency to pick up, even if it's just 5th and 6th every weekend, in Formula E, that can mean a lot. It really can. So 5th in the championship, you know, isn't anything major. But your first year in Formula E, considering he hasn't driven a single-seater for a very long time, just like Gary Paffett, it's going to be an interesting one. And he is my winning rookie, funnily enough, even though I've been critical of him. And I definitely think BMW could have picked a better driver. I'm not going to lie to that, but I think Alexander Sims isn't going to be one of these drivers like Andre Lotterer, who's hot-headed. I think he's going to keep his cool, and he's going to carry that team home to 5th in the drivers. Mitch Evans in 4th. I actually think this is the most rogue prediction I've made. I really do think that. And if you're new to Formula E, once again, you probably don't realise this, but a couple of years ago, Jaguar barely picked up points. You know, this guy's been there since day one for Jaguar and really is becoming, like in my top 5 Formula E drivers, he's slowly becoming one of the best, I feel. You know, he's had time to embed himself into Formula E, and strangely enough, you could say he's one of the veterans now because he's done 3 seasons. It's crazy to see how much the grid has changed in just the last 2 years. Disclaimer, that's not a picture of Mitch Evans on screen. I don't actually have any of Mitch Evans, so apologies, that is Piquet. But he is in the same car, so, you know, there you go. But Mitch Evans, I can see something special this year. I really can. And I said this yesterday on stream. I do have a slight bias towards Mitch Evans, only a little bit. I don't have a particularly favourite driver in Formula E, but if I really had to pick, I think I would go with Mitch. Again, such a nice guy, but he showed at the end of last year, if that car was a little bit better, he could really have picked up some wins, got that pole position, and yeah, you can see who's in third. You can see who I put in third, and it's Jean-Eric Vergne. You know, it's really difficult to pick this top three once again, but I did put Techeetah in third place in the Constructors, and I'm pretty confident of that, if I'm being totally honest. I'm confident Audi will be in front. I'm confident BMW will be in front. And Jean-Eric Vergne, I think he'll have the consistency to beat the likes of Sims, to beat the likes of Abt, who, like I say, I think will be in better cars. I'm confident of that, but am I confident he's going to constantly, in this Techeetah, beat other guys that may or may not be in Audis and BMWs that I haven't named yet? I'm not too confident, you know, and definitely this guy's going to be picking up wins and multiple podiums, but I do love the fact that Formula E's never had a multiple season winner. I do love that, and do I want to carry that on? Well, there's still 2 drivers left. Well, we're going to have to find out. Yes, I do want to carry that on, because that was our final 2 world champions. Vergne was last year's world champion. di Grassi was season 3 world champion. So these 2 are the last 2 new world champions. And yeah, I don't see either of them picking up the crown. And I think I've spoke a lot about, I mean, let's be honest, any of these top 3, I think it's going to be. I think they're the favourites for sure, and it's going to be interchangeable. But I keep saying it all the time. So unpredictable, Formula E. And I feel I've got to follow what I've put in the Teams Championship. Because do I think Techeetah, like I said about Virgin last year, do I think Techeetah are going to be on the ball every single race? I'm not too sure. Audi, you look at their reliability. You look at Lucas di Grassi's reliability at the beginning of last year. I spoke about it earlier. No points in those first 5 races, then came home first and second almost every other race for the remainder of the year. So they're going to be factors. 100%. They're going to be factors in this championship. But, I mean, some of you may not have worked out who I've put as my world champ, but my Formula E Season 5 world champion is Antonio Felix da Costa, the former Red Bull young driver. This guy has had a tough time in Formula E and has stayed with Andretti now for a couple of seasons. He's had to go through hell with them. He has. He's picked up a win in Formula E, but that was a difficult one where guys were smashing out all over the shop. He's the only guy ever in Formula E, actually, to date, that's only got just a 1 Formula E win, which I think is quite an interesting stat. But this guy, such a brilliant racer in some difficult teams. To be honest with you, this is going to be his first real chance in Formula E to give it a real go. I think BMW, like we've said all through the winter, summer really, let's be honest, but through pre-season testing is what I'm getting at. Everyone's been saying BMW is going to be the team to beat. We saw the results in testing. These guys were at the top every single day. They're the team to beat. Who do I think is the best driver out of Costa and Sims? I go with Costa. Even if Costa was a rookie, I would go with Costa. And I think it's his time. And I think Formula E Season 5, we're going to have a new champion once again. And it's going to go the way of the Portuguese Antonio Felix da Costa. Give me your predictions in the comments below, guys. You've been here a long time if you've made it this far. So if you fancy interacting in the comments, you can do. But of course, 2 days to go. Formula E content, you know it's going to be on this channel galore at the moment. But guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.